So just a little bit of background on myself before we start. My introduction to container terminals and to process automation solutions was a little over 12 years ago at APL in Southern California. At that time, I worked for WareNet, and APL was engaged in a project to use OCR at the gate to read the containers, to marry that to a WareNet tag chassis, and then to automatically track the chassis into the yard, at which point we would update the wheeled container position to Sparks. So we had two different vendors and a terminal operating system and a process that automated an otherwise manual process for updating the position in the yard. So as we go through the presentation today, you'll hear us talking about a number of different processes in the yard and how to automate the information flow. Over the last 12 years, I've been involved globally in a number of projects and have certainly seen an uptick in the number of projects that have been undertaken in the last few years. And I think one of the single biggest drivers to this is the significant increase in the size of the vessel. So if you look at what a terminal operator has to deal with today, a very large vessel, and yet that vessel is expected to be turned just as quickly as the smaller vessel, which means a lot of unevenness in the workflow for the terminal operator. So you have all of a sudden a much larger need for equipment, greater influx of people, and oftentimes some of those people are not as well trained. So you create a lot of velocity that's required in that terminal for a short period of time. And this creates safety challenges. It also has an impact on the profitability of the terminal. And there's two ways to address this. For those terminals that can afford a completely automated solution, that investment may be a good one. But for the rest of the terminals and the bulk of the terminals, they need a different solution. What they need is an automated process. And that's what we'll be talking about today. If you look at the lower left-hand corner of this slide, you'll see the results of a test that we ran, or a query that we ran earlier this year. And by and large, what customers came back with was an explanation for the reason that they've deployed process automation. And largely it was to gain efficiency, to gain a better bottom line, and also to address safety concerns and safety issues. Now, let's take a look at a specific example, specific flow of information, and let's look at vessel discharge. So when that ship arrives and the containers need to be unloaded, the terminal operating system needs to know which container has come off the vessel, and it needs to know which terminal tractor that container's ended up with in order to dispatch a work instruction to that terminal tractor. Now, in some terminals, it may be a completely manual process. It may be a bay list that a clerk or a foreman is reading from, and a radio dispatch to a terminal tractor. In a more sophisticated operation, perhaps one that's using equipment control, it may be a clerk entering the container ID and entering the truck ID so that Sparks can issue an automated instruction to the operator. But in both cases, the operator can't begin their work until the manual process has taken place. And that's really what the process automation solution is replacing. We use technology in order to update the information flow to the terminal operating system and to ensure that the operator receives their work instruction in an automated fashion. Now, as we go through the presentation today, what we're talking about will work with any terminal operating system and will work with any equipment. It doesn't need to be equipment that's manufactured by Calmar. So one of the challenges of describing a process automation solution is that it's very difficult to see. When you look out your window, you see container stacks, you see key cranes, you see RTGs, you see all the physical hardware in your terminal. What you don't see is the information flow that's necessary in order for that equipment to operate efficiently and safely. So when we talk about process automation, the way it manifests itself is in the benefit that you see for your operation. So we talked about the time saved at the key crane. There's also significant time saved for the operator. We'll take a look at how the operator manually processes their work instruction today and how our system automates that and creates greater efficiency for the operator. We'll also talk about containers and accurately being able to track containers based upon sensor information and GPS information, as opposed to relying upon a manual data entry. This is a very important slide. So when I look at that initial project with APL years ago, and I look at all the projects that have come since then, what's common to all of those projects is a variety of vendors that are required in order to make the project a success. So what the Kalmar SmartPort Alliance does is it combines best of breed technologies. So Zebra, for example, is providing the RFID technology that allows us to track the street trucks. APS is providing the OCR technology that allows us to identify the containers. And Simeo is providing the location technology that allows us to accurately track the spreaders of the equipment in the yard. So what SmartPort Alliance has done is to combine these vendors into a single solution so that you, the customer, can have one vendor, Kalmar, responsible for the solution. And this is really important. If I look back at all these past projects, hold up your hand, you can count to 5 the challenges that these terminal operators have faced. So first, if the terminal is going to put this together themselves, they need to identify each of those best of breed technologies. That takes time. Secondly, they need to contract with each of those vendors, which takes more time and involves the legal department and the purchasing department. Third, once it's all put together, then the process begins to try and integrate those technologies with each other and to integrate that information with the terminal operating system. Fourth, once you've got all this put together, you now begin to troubleshoot the system. And when something doesn't work, it's then up to that terminal operator to try and figure out which component's broken and to try and work with that individual vendor to fix the problem. And then fifth, over time, as you're supporting the solution, invariably one of these vendors will come out with new hardware, new software, and then you have the challenge of making sure that it doesn't break the custom solution that you've created. So in 2011, some of you will remember Navis introduced the Star Alliance program, which brought partners together and tried to streamline this process. And Kalmar has really taken this one step further now and provided a complete turnkey system that works with any terminal operating system and with whatever equipment you choose to use. So very simple, turnkey, easy to deploy, and fast ROI. That's what we'll be talking about today. So on the next slide, I've summarized the 9 different modules that make up the Kalmar SmartPort solution, and we're going to talk about 6 of them today. You'll see the little green dot. Those are the 6 that we'll be focusing on as we go through the presentation today. So SmartTrack is the first module we'll talk about. If you look at the picture in the lower right-hand corner, you can see this is a system that's currently deployed. This is at APMT Pier 400, and APS cameras are used in order to read the ID of the container, and RFID readers are used in order to read the ID of the rail car. Then software is used to compile automatically essentially a manifest of the rail car and the containers. That information is then available in SmartTracks and mapped precisely to a position in the yard. This then allows us to automate the container put and pull to the rail car. So we know exactly what container is being pulled based upon the lat-long position of that container on a map. So some significant advantages here. It allows us very quickly to update Sparks with the correct information, or any terminal operating system with the correct information on the rail car manifest. It allows us to automate the handoff between the rail and the lifting equipment. Now, some of the new enhancements that are coming this year for SmartTracks are focused on rail-mounted gantry cranes and better displays for the operator in order to understand their work instruction and their job. So if you look at the picture on the upper right, you'll see a strad. So regardless of how you service the rail, whether it be a strat or whether it be a terminal tractor, um, you need to be moving the containers from the rail into the yard. And the second automation module we'll talk about, SmartPath, leverages a piece of software called PrimeRoute that's provided by Sparks or N4. What PrimeRoute does is it allows you to pool either the Strad or the terminal tractors that are servicing the yard. By pooling these resources, and you can pool them across the entire rail operation, you can even pool them across the rail and the vessel operation. By pooling these assets, you're able to make better decisions on which terminal tractor should be responsible for which job. And in order to do this, PrimeRoute needs to have good information on where that tractor is. Now, historically, the way PrimeRoute gains that information is it relies on the operator to get a function key when they reach specific places in the yard. And as you might imagine, that makes the system very dependent upon the operator. And if the operator does a very good job of hitting the function key at exactly the right time, the system works great. If the operator isn't quite as accurate as you want them to be, then bad information flows to the terminal operating system. And as a result, PrimeRoute is not as optimized as it could be. So we're going to take a look at a video here and a customer in Malta Freeport that has deployed SmartPath and is using SmartPath to automate the data entry into PrimeRoute.
Malta Freeport in the region of the Mediterranean is of being one of the major transshipment hubs, which has been established in the last 25 years and is one of the leaders in transshipment terminals.
Last year we handled over 2.5 million TEUs, of which we did service clients like CMA, CGM, Maersk Line and other major shipping lines.
This is our first experience with semi-automation technology, but definitely it will not be our last. We intend to take up more modules from the SmartPort suite.
We have invested in process automation in Malta Freeport mainly because we want to improve the service we are providing to our clients. Basically, process automation will reduce the human error factor and also will improve also our performances levels in relation to the performance that we are achieving currently. PrimeRoute requires job stepping, and with job stepping, the driver has to intervene with manual input on his RDT set. With SmartPath, we will eliminate this function by the driver, and in addition to that, we will improve our performances. Apart from SmartPath, we are also having the SmartFleet, which will be providing telematics to our engineering department so that they can make better analysis on the equipment that we are using in Malta Freeport.
No reservations, no problems with installing the Kalmar's equipment on another supplier's equipment. Actually, our engineering team did a great job to install the Kalmar equipment on our existing fleet of trucks and cranes.
The first results of operations are very positive and we are very satisfied. We have installed currently up to 63 units, cross-core units into our tugs and 23 on our key cranes. The information that is being sent via Wi-Fi, the GPS information, is being also displayed on the live view screen that we have installed in our equipment control office. And at the moment we are in the project stage where we are testing also the job stepping feature. The key benefit in SmartPath is that with the implementation of SmartPath into our applications, we will be having less human errors. And this is based mostly because at the moment we are having our truck drivers which are still pressing the function key. And with having this automation, we'll automatically avoid this, will improve performances, will give us more benefits in the sense of visibility of where is the equipment, and also will enable us to have better performance at the end.
We will be considering other SmartPort products. We will consider SmartStack, which is related to the automated yard inventory solution. And we also are looking at SmartLift, which is concerned with the automated handoff solution with trucks.
Okay, so let's take a look at some of the additional applications that Stephen and Jasmine talked about in the video. So the first one, critical application, is SmartLifts. So if you put yourself in the seat of the operator, and here where we've got a picture of an RTG operator, and think for a minute about what that RTG operator has to do. So the first thing that has to happen is the RTG operator has to identify the truck that's below them, whether that's a terminal tractor or whether it's a street truck. Secondly, the operator then looks at the list of jobs that are queued up in the terminal operating system. Those will be all the jobs for that piece of lifting equipment from the vessel or all the jobs from the gate. Then the operator has to verify that that job can be performed, because it may be that the truck that's below them is actually in queue behind another truck and can't be worked until the truck in front of is worked first. So this is a lot of information for an operator to try and process before they can even begin to lift a container. So some terminals will use, particularly in the Americas, will use a clerk in a pickup truck as a surrogate to go through this information and then enter that information and dispatch a job to the operator. Regardless whether that work is done by the operator himself or by a clerk, it takes time. So what we're talking about with SmartLifts is getting rid of that manual process. We're talking about using technology that allows us to track the truck so we know where the truck is, and using technology to track the spreader track the lifting equipment so we know where the lifting equipment is. And then SmartLifts makes the decision on the best job for that operator to perform, and that job is dispatched automatically. So the time that can be saved is significant. If I look at one customer, YTI in Los Angeles, after automating this process, they no longer have people in harm's way and pickup trucks underneath the RTGs, and the process now proceeds automatically. And they've observed about a 15% improvement now in the speed at which that RTG operator can process a transaction, which means that that street truck gets in and out of the terminal more efficiently, which is a significant benefit to everyone. So again, we're using technology in order to automate the process that would have otherwise been performed manually by the operator. So let's take a look at SmartStack. So SmartLift was involved in getting the container transitioned back and forth between the truck and the lifting equipment. Well, there's also a transition between the stack and the lifting equipment. And historically, the way the terminal operating system works is it assumes that the operator works the job that they were instructed to work, and it updates the container position in the database accordingly. So that works great as long as that the job that's instructed is actually the job that's performed, and also as long as there are no moves performed, like big moves, for example, for which an instruction was not issued. If either of those two things happen, then the inventory gets out of sync and the accuracy of the container stack becomes suspect. And you see that in your terminal operating system. It's often referred to as a floater, a container sitting in space with no containers underneath it, which everybody knows is not possible. But that's what happens when bad information is introduced to the system. So again, by using technology to accurately track the spreader and to accurately pay attention to the twist locks, we can confirm the foot and the place of every container in and out of the stack automatically. And we're not reliant upon or dependent upon the work instruction. Much better information for the toss, which means more accuracy in the terminal, and no need again for people to be walking in the stacks trying to manually update inventory because something is out of sync. So SmartRail. SmartRail, I think of this as autopilot, like autopilot for an RTG. So this allows the RTG to move in an automated fashion from one bay to the next based upon the work instruction. And it allows the operator to just focus on the final, put and pull of that container, either in and out of the stack, or the delivery or receipt of that container from the truck. So again, allows the operator to be more efficient. There's also a significant safety benefit. Their anti-collision capability between the RTGs as well as between the RTG spreader and the stack. Again, making the operator more efficient and making the operation a safer operation for everyone. So SmartFleet. This is another significant benefit. So most of what we talked about so far are the sensors or monitoring that we need to do in order to automate the information flow to the terminal operating system. Well, the good news is the infrastructure that we put in order to support that can also support monitoring additional sensors on the equipment. So if you look at the slide here, what you're seeing is a dashboard. Each square represents each piece of lifting equipment or terminal tractor, and the little icons indicate the challenges that may exist with that equipment. So you can see a fuel indicator. This helps provide operations with better information on refueling so that you're not refueling the entire fleet and only refueling those equipment that need fuel. Secondly, you can see the little red indicator. Those are engine fault codes. So if you've got a problem with a piece of equipment, you can catch it quickly, get it to the maintenance shop, and repair it before you do critical damage to the equipment. Preventative maintenance. So we also have the ability to provide this information to the maintenance team, and they can more proactively schedule and perform maintenance. This is one of the benefits SmartFleet that you heard Jasmine talk about in the video. So we're going to take a look here at a visualization tool that allows you to see the equipment both in real time and in replay mode. So what you're looking at here is a terminal, and you have to have good eyes, I guess. All of the pink trucks, those are the outside trucks, the community trucks. All the black trucks, those are the internal yard trucks for the terminal. You can also see the key cranes along the berth. And each time you see a blue circle, that is an interchange of a container between a truck and a piece of lifting equipment. The operator can zoom in and pay attention to any particular piece of equipment. You can track any particular truck. And again, you can see this information live, or you can play this information in replay in order to see what actually happened with a particular operation. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the people, because the people are a very important component to the solution. So over the course of the last 12 years, there are a number of individuals that have been involved in these projects and are experts at running a process automation project and integrating and working with a number of different vendors. And while the system works reliably with any terminal operating system, there is certainly a lot of energy since Cargotec's acquisition of Navis and the acquisition of the WireNet Maritime software to tightly integrate these solutions with Navis. So rather than just being, Navis ready, we're talking about a turnkey solution that integrates very tightly with Sparks and N4 and is supported as well. Second issue that Kalmar brings, which is very important, is the equipment side of things. So we're talking about being able to install hardware on not just Kalmar's lifting equipment, but on a variety of other lifting equipment, whether it's EPMC, Fantuzzi, capacity, it doesn't matter. And Kalmar has a broad services organization that's globally deployed and may oftentimes be right across the street. New customer, APMT Elizabeth, it's they could hit the Kalmar office with a rock. So it adds real value having that support literally right across the street. The second group of employees that are critical is the support team. So if you're familiar with Navis, you're familiar with the Salesforce process, opening a case and having your case supported and resolved. Very similar process here. The team is a little bit different. And the team is very well cross-trained. So you're looking at Robert and Constantine, employees that have been to training in Germany with Simeo. They've been down to APS in San Diego, and a number of them have actually worked previously at WareNet and deployed actual WareNet projects. So when you open a case, you're dealing with support personnel that understand the process automation solution and each of the vendors that are part of it. And this is reflected in the bar chart that's shown here. So each time you open a case, and when you close the case, when it's resolved, you have the opportunity to rate how well we did. And in the fourth quarter of last year, almost a perfect score, 4.9 out of 5. So this is a super important benefit and part of the Kalmar SmartPort offering. Okay, so just to close, this is the bottom of the slide is where we began with the what you need slide. And again, the importance here is the information flow. And for many terminals today, that information flow is a manual process. It requires operators or clerks to enter data into the terminal operating system so that the information can then flow to the operator on what to do. And that process is not efficient. So when we talk about the SmartPort solution, what we're talking about is using technology to automate that process so that no human intervention is required in order to get the information accurately into the terminal operating system and in order to get to a work instruction quickly and efficiently to the operator. So there were a couple questions around pricing, and again, I think we've got good tools to look at your operation, to work with you to assess what your payback period would be. You can contact me in the Americas. You can contact Neil if you're joining from EMEA. And if you or any of your representatives are going to be at TOC in Europe, we'll have a booth there as well. So reach out to us. We can help. And if you want to join us for the next webinar, on May 2nd, we'll cover in greater detail the process from the vessel to the yard, and we'll also cover in much greater detail a live presentation of SmartMap. Thank you for joining us.